Hi, I'm Chantra Powell, and I'm the Proven Not Perfect podcast host and a best-selling author on Amazon. Do any of these words call out to you? Drive, ambition, doing, leading, creating. These words call many of us, and sometimes to heroic impact. This is all good until we forget about our own self and our own self needs, mainly care. My Village of All-Stars, they not only command position, but they command influence. Well, there's always a backstory. I myself, Chantra Powell, have had to put myself on the sideline a few times, but I'm still in the game. I'm staying in the game. The only thing different about me is that I'm proven not perfect. Enjoy. Hey, Proven Not Perfect community. This is your host, Chantra Powell. So what's on my mind right now is this writers-actors strike. If you've been following, the writers have been on strike for nearing 3 months as we have this conversation at the end of July 2023. And actors have been in the game at the line, striking as well for the last 3 weeks at least. When you talk to folks who are on the ground, they don't have the sunniest outlook about this going away quickly. And I have to admit, when I first heard of the strike, I actually thought it would be something that would be pretty quick, pretty easy to get past, because how difficult could the issues be? If you're like me, I have glamorized the whole world of entertainment. I can't help but speak about the trivial magazines that feature, the hottest stylist celebrity, and think of that as an anchor of entertainment. I think when it comes to theater, that might be the only space where I consider the breadth of all that it takes to produce a show and bring a show together. And I understand that that can happen at multiple levels, from a Broadway stage to a community theater stage to a regional theater stage. There are levels to that thing, right? And so because I'm curious, because I love a good TV show, I love a good stream, I love a good movie, I love to escape and use it as a tool to just find some balance as I let go of my own life and engage in the subject of what I'm watching. So I started thinking about my Village of All-Stars, and I brought one back. Her name is Yvette Foy. If you listened to this podcast for a while, you maybe heard a little bit about Yvette. She's one of my homegirls from New Orleans, Louisiana, and she has been killing the game writing for such amazing shows like Just My Luck, The First Wives Club, Miss Me This Christmas, and other projects that she's been bringing forward to the big screen. I wanted to talk to her to hear her thoughts about what's happening, in particular because she has been actively engaged in the strike since the beginning. And then I thought, man, wouldn't it be kind of cool to add another industry leader and voice to this conversation who can add a perspective that may be the same, may be different. I don't know, just felt like sprinkling more voices into this discussion. Her name is Bianca Sams, and I'm so excited to get to know her through my connection with Yvette. Bianca Sams is a triple threat when it comes to her education at NYU Tisch School, acting, dramatic writing, Africana studies. She did her MFA in playwriting, and she has been featured both on the stage in some pretty amazing plays like Rent and Ruined. She's also been in film like Serenity, and then she writes. She's written for WB Television, and she's been the supervising producer of Charmed. So these are no small potatoes, y'all. Both of these ladies have been actively engaged and actively leading. And, this podcast is all about bringing forward women who are proven not perfect, but they are passionate, they are on point, they are on mission, and they are pursuing things to be better for those behind them. And I couldn't help but invite Bianca Sams to be a part of my Village of All Stars, like Yvette already is. And I am sure that if you are like me and you're curious about when all of this goes away and we get back to the magic, y'all, you're going to want to hear this. There's some interesting layers to this. If you've glamorized it, you're going to learn a lot about just what's happening behind the scenes. So I'm not saying anymore. I hope you listen. I hope you love it. I hope you tell me about it and see us on YouTube. That way you can watch us full in person. Take care. Proving that perfect. Here we go. Yvette and Bianca, oh my God, what a privilege to have you both here together, broadcasting live from LA, do I dare say?
Yeah. It's hot. It's like 98 degrees today.
Seriously?
Yeah.
But it's not humid though, right? It's not like humid hot.
It's humid. It's
No.
sticky. Well, in the valley, it is sticky.
Oh, possibly. On this side of the hill, it's like an oven.
Really?
It's both. It's humid and hot.
It's humid and hot. Okay. Well, so then that tells me that the whole United States of America is having the same experience, right? Because I'm nestled on the East Coast most of the time. Yesterday, about this time, I was on the East Coast and it was 100 degrees. This morning, I'm in the Central Time Zone and it is 100 degrees. And 57% humidity everywhere. So we are all baking.
And the world, because, Europe is having record heat waves, fires everywhere. Like, it's hot. Yeah. We're there.
We're there. Yeah. Well, you know what? I actually want to bring us all to remember something, right? Because it actually kind of goes with the theme of our talk a little bit, right? So do you all remember the movie, what was it? Do the Right Thing, where it was like the hot summer and everything was happening and everything was there was just unrest, right? Yeah. And I can't think of a more fitting way to kind of think about the conversation that I get the privilege to have with Yvette and Bianca, as you guys are both spending so much time invested in, quite frankly, the future for others. Not only yourself, the future for others, as you represent and participate in the writers, actors strike and movement that's happening right now boldly. I'd say the epicenter being in LA, but my understanding is that anyone in and around the space is participating in very unique and distinct ways. So let's talk about it. First,
let's talk about it.
Yes, let's talk about it. So I think
Hot Strike Summer is what they're calling it.
Hot Strike Summer.
They're calling it Hot Strike Summer.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Oh my God.
There's shirts, there's pins. Everybody's like, Hot Strike Summer.
Okay, I'm gonna need to get one of those. One of y'all gonna have to send me a pin because that's monumental. So why now? I guess the big question, the burning question, following the theme of hot, is why now is everyone at the point of exhaustion and fed up and ready for movement and seeking action? I'd like to hear from both of you. So maybe I'll start, first with you, Yvette, and then we'll hear from you, Bianca.
We tend to approach this. we have a lot of similar thought around this, but we've reached a boiling point. And you cannot, it's bubbling over, and there is no more what if AI, because AI is here. There is no more what do I do if I cannot keep up with the fast, growing economy, like with the cost of living, because we're here. What if my livelihood is at stake? What if the longevity of this particular profession is at stake because they've squeezed it so much and stretched it so much that the creatives are the pieces that are getting lost in between? And when we drive this industry, never was it meant for us to lose so much equity in it that we are unable to exist at all. It's like our very livelihood. We might as well, like, okay, what should we do? Pack it up and go to medical school? Like, really, seriously, what is the alternative when this is what we do for a living? They're literally squeezing us out when we are the very existence of the creative space.
Wow. What do you think, Bianca?
I think it was inevitable. We're at a space where for decades this has been happening, right? Or year after year, all over the country, not just us. I think people are getting to the point where they're fed up, right? The how much the difference between the uber wealthy and we don't have a middle class, right? Like lower class has expanded and expanded, horrifically since at least the 80s, right? And what the pay is for some people and the pay is for other people and the cost of living going up and everything. So I think there's some of that, but then there's this other like more immediate thing that I think, it's funny. A friend said basically like every, 19, whenever you get to the 20s of whatever century, things go crazy. And I was like, oh, we bought the deal because we have all of it, right? We've got, recessions, we've got, things crashing, we've got robber barons, we've got, economic issues, war, we've got social unrest, you have, for us, it's like between
total disruption, Bianca.
Of all things, right? Yeah, it's like we were barely recovering from the last, bust. Then, COVID happens and everything shuts down, which to me gave people time to really think, right? About how unhappy they are and about how much they're being abused and about how much stuff was wrong because we watched the system literally turn against everyone who wasn't uber wealthy, right? Like we were supposed to have these PPP loans that were going to everybody, but the people who got them mostly were like ultra wealthy and then people scamming. So there's that. Then you have all these companies getting money. And then what do? They don't keep their workers like they're supposed to. They buy back their stocks, right? Like you have all of these things where everybody is having record breaking profits. And I'm doing air quotes. And yet the workers have no money, right? So you have that in COVID. Plus you have millions of people dying. Plus you have like the heels of war, right? All of these things are happening. And then for us in our industry, I'm surprised it hadn't happened sooner, right? Because we've had so many fights in the last couple of years. And I think if COVID hadn't happened when it did, 2020 would have been the year that like a lot of these issues would have been brought up. But because of COVID, we didn't get anything in 2020. We were all just like, okay, we can't deal with it. And so on this side of it, after 3 years, after record profits, after we, work ourselves to death. I didn't get to see my mama for 2.5 years because I was working. And my mother doesn't live that far. But it was like everybody was working themselves to the bone and people were saying how important entertainment business was to people's survival. And yet when we get to the other side, it's basically, that's nice. We're not going to pay you. Everything you want, we're not going to pay you. We're going to ask you to do more and more and more with less and less and less. And I think for a lot of writers and particularly also actors, because I'm in both unions, it was just like enough is enough, right? Like streaming killed our industry in regards to residuals. It was just like inevitable to happen. It's like all the things happening at once. And then at a certain point, the pressure builds and the volcano explodes. But the same thing is happening with the UPS people, although I think they made a deal. And then hotel workers. Like there's so many different kinds of people on
So
strike
here's
right
what
now.
I'm going to say though, and I'm curious to hear what you think. The difference between the UPS worker and the corporate worker at, any job, ... is that us folks that are not intimately familiar with the space, what we see is what we get. But the piece that I'm disconnected from as it relates to the acting industry in particular, the entertainment industry in particular, is that it's only through this experience that I'm starting to learn all of the fanfare, all of the documentation, all of the writing, all of that. There's a little bit of shade, if I can use that word, that has kind of been put out there, because I hear what you're saying. Yes, there are fights to fight across the board, multi-industry. That is a fact. However, I'm going to say until a group came together and said, it's time, most of us had no idea the economic structure of that industry. And full disclosure, I paid for a child to get in that industry, right? So
exactly. And as a rule of thumb, like people just think you're rich. Oh my God, you write for television. Oh my God, you write movies. Oh my God, you write for Netflix. Like you must be rich. You must be making a ton of money. When the truth is over time, our pay has eroded and it's not kept up with the changes of the industry. So we have been getting paid off an antiquated system. And I remember the day because Bianca is extremely modest, but she's also a strike captain, and she is co-chair of the CBW, which is the Committee of Black Writers. And I just consider myself a wonderful sounding board because, I listen to it all and I hear it all and I go, I love you and this, right? So I remember the day that she said to me, this isn't going to be a short fight and it's not going to be an easy fight. And I said, why is that? And she said, because the entire structure of how we get paid has to change. And I think that was when it hit me. And that was last year. Wow. And we've been preparing for this. And I think for me, it was comforting to know it wasn't just me, because you can live in a bubble, right? And so you have friends and we're all developing, and we know that development typically doesn't pay. And so we know that, like, in between developing and praying that this show gets pitched and gets picked up, that we're also doing gig work. And then we're also like writing on a show. And so you're like barely sleeping because you're also trying to do development. And then you're trying to get, your show done, but also feeling like something isn't right here. Like I shouldn't be working this hard and getting paid like this little. And then wondering whether or not I'm going to work for 3 more months when that job is over. And I think what happened this strike, as opposed to 2007's strike, was the internet and more people being able to voice it. So it was like,
yes. You guys are educating us, right?
And also, Chantal, we could talk to each other. It was like, we're striking, right? Oh yeah, we're striking. Oh yeah, we're striking. And you heard it all across the board. Hopefully we can come to an agreement, but so maybe I shouldn't say we're striking, right? We're striking. I should say, you're disgruntled, right? Yes, I'm disgruntled. Yeah. I'm upset about this. You're upset about this. And it was all across the board.
Wow.
And I think part of the reason people don't know is, we are in the entertainment industry. It is the industry of smoke and mirrors. Like, that is the point. They don't want people to know. They don't want us to know either. Like, they don't want us talking to each other to find out, well, how much are you making?
That part blows my mind.
What's happening to you? Right. What's happening to you?
Right.
There are no standards. And I think part of what I would love to break down and for people to understand is we're gig workers, right? We are contract workers. And I think This is the thing I try to explain to my family all the time, which to some degree they understand, and then at times they don't. We don't get vacations. We don't get time off. You don't get sick days. It's like any other contract sort of job, right? And in this particular industry, what
even though we're
used to
watching
be,
this successful show, we're watching this successful show. We're all
when I tell you how crazy it's also gotten, right? Like, it's hard to explain because our industry in and of itself can seem a little complicated, right? It's not like a regular job where I go 9 to 5. No,
Right.
I might work for 3 months. I might work for 6 months and then not work again for 2 years, right? Like, because it might take that long for that show to come out. But then I might be working from 10 to 2 a.m., right, on this day. And like our hours are crazy. What we're paid is crazy. But besides that, right, what's happening now isn't just a one thing, right? It's not just our pay, right? It's also, one of the most expensive shows ever created aired last year. That writer's room got 10 weeks to write a show that I think they spent something over $700 million to make, right? But the writers got 10 weeks, 10 weeks. And then they had to write their episodes when they weren't in the room for free, basically. It's like you got your script fee, but normally you're writing while in the room, because if Yvette is writing episode before mine, I need to know what she's doing because mine's going to change by hers. So by us not even being able to communicate, it's almost impossible to write episodes that make sense, because if any little thing changes, like we need to be together. So on average, the shortest used to be 6 months was the shortest. It was like 10 months for the longest had been the thing. You had 10 months to actually plot it out and deal with it and like do all the production stuff. Then it became 6 months. Then it became 3 months. Now we're at like 10 weeks. There are rooms that are 8 weeks. So you're asking writers to basically work around the clock. We're working, and it wasn't like we weren't working long hours before, but being on a show where you're literally expected to be there until 10 p.m. and then get up and be there in the morning and then do this and work on the weekends and you're missing holidays, you're missing everything. People are burnt. They're burnt out and they're not making more money. So they're making less.
As I'm listening to you, I can't help but think about, some of the big drivers that came out of COVID with Netflix and Hulu and HBO, all the things, right? All the new platforms, if you will. I have been so impressed with how much new material they're able to put on so quickly. But I talked to my husband about this just the other day, and I didn't even make this connection until we're having this conversation, okay? I was telling him, what's interesting to me is that I am now reprogrammed in my relationship with TV, film, entertainment. My relationship now, most of the time, is I want to take a Saturday or a Friday or whatever day, and I want to start with an episode, and I want to go all the way through to the end. So when I was a kid who loved the Cosby Show in a different world, I had to tune in on Thursday, 7:00. That's it. There was no option.
But in the seat.
Wait for what Rudy did. I had to wait for what Theo did, right? Was he going to kiss Charlene or not? I had to wait. But the point is now we have reprogrammed us. So I had not thought about the engine that goes back behind all of that. If you are a writer, your material is over a time frame that supports episodes playing out over a season. Versus now, the reprogramming of people like me, I want to sit down and have opportunity to see the whole season right there one swap. What?
But the thing is, it wouldn't be problematic if we actually had enough time to do the work, right? When people are like, this don't make no sense. And I'm like, you had 10 weeks to do 10 episodes. Like, it's not enough time, but then it's also that's just the writing portion of it. And I think most people think, oh, all we do is the writing. And you don't. You go to set, you produce that episode.
Exactly.
Right. I am there every day of production. So I'm helping and talking to people who are doing costumes, who are doing set, who are doing lighting, to the directors, to the actors, right? And that's a whole other part. We're in editing, we're in sound. So the fact that all of these things are part of our job, and yet what they're trying to do is disconnect us from it. And it's making the shows even more discombobulated because the right hand don't know what the left hand is doing, and half of them don't know where the parts are. Like, it's just like it makes no sense.
And the reason why we're there and why it's important is because we're literally in the room when it's being conceptualized. So we know pieces that production doesn't know. Like, they couldn't possibly know that we pitched X, Y, and Z in the room, why it didn't work. And if a set needs to be changed, why it needs to be changed, if a location, okay? Like, one of our friends works on FBI, and I remember she was there in Budapest, and they lost a location, and she literally had to help them find another location. But there are semantics to what that location has to be and why it has to be that way that she knows that they don't know. And so by them trying to cut us out of the production process, it cheapens the work, it makes it more stressful for everybody involved. And it just is like,
it costs more money, though. That's the thing, is it costs them more money. It will cost them more money to cut us out of it. I mean, like, the number of times we save them money just by being on set, because then that also has to be rewritten. It has to work to this new space. And so I think what has happened, and the idea of binging, as you were talking about, like on a Saturday, is from streaming, right? Netflix and all of them have created this model where they just dump everything all at once, which, okay, that's fine. But what that has also done is completely break our compensation model, right? Previously,
tell us more about that.
You were talking about when you watched The Cosby Show, it came out, or Different World, it came out on a Thursday, right? You watched it on a Thursday. Then it would maybe be replayed on that Friday or that Saturday, or played earlier in the day on Thursday so you could catch up and watch, right? Same work, but the way the old model was, they weren't paying us enough for the script, but they were like, hey, we'll do a profit sharing. You know, that's how residuals work. So every time it replayed, we would get some of that money, right? Okay. Then streaming came along, and they were like, oh, we don't know what it is. We don't know if it'll be profitable. Mm-hmm. So you guys should cut us a deal on how much we should pay. Which, why we go for this okie doke every time, I don't know. But this is why we're not going for the okie doke this time, right? It happened with DVD. It happened with all of these. Anytime there's a new VHS, then it happened with streaming. So we gave them a deal. Like, okay, for the first couple of years, here's a deal. You don't have to pay us as much.
But then also, it was like, wait, B, let me jump in. But also because they weren't playing ads. Like, that was the big thing when streaming came, when Netflix began. There's no ads in your binging, and ads are typically how we get paid, ad money.
Right.
So
they're like, well,
so
we
that's
don't
how
have
they
ad
justified
money.
it. The ads are gone.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
So we don't know if it'll actually make money.
Yeah.
Right.
They knew, we knew, whatever. So, but what that meant was, say, if you replayed on TV, I was supposed to get, say, I don't know, $2,000, right? The moment you're replaying it indefinitely, I think at first Netflix could give you or streaming could give you $800 for a whole year. Not one time playing it, a year, indefinitely. You know, as many people who watched it, $800 versus if it played on Thursday before, that's $1,000. Played on Saturday, that's $1,000. Played on Sunday, that's $1,000. So that was $3,000 from 3 times showing in one market.
Yeah.
So you think about that. That was the money that goes in people's health insurance. That's the money that goes in people's pensions. If you hadn't noticed, I said earlier, we don't sometimes work for a year and a half. That's the money to keep people in between lean times. This is how it works. Now suddenly you have $800 for an entire year, and they're paying you less. They pay you less script fees. They can pay you less on, weeklies. So everything you're being paid from top to bottom is less than it was before in the old model. And now everybody's into it, right? It's not just one or two streamers. Everybody has it. And a thing I've been telling people is like, if you notice things, they have a 5-week window to show it online and they don't have to pay it. And then miraculously, you get to that 6-week mark and all of it's gone, right? Like it ain't here, it ain't there, it ain't nowhere until it ends up on like a Netflix or a Hulu. And that's usually because those people pay them to put it on there. And then Yvette, you brought up a really great point. Now they got commercials. Now they got commercials on all of this stuff. They got subscribers. You got to pay extra if you don't want commercials. They get money on both sides, and yet we still don't make more money. Like you're at a point of what can we do?
Right. I often use the example to explain, like, when I realized as a consumer and a writer, the conundrum was I wanted to watch Snowfall. I had a Snowfall airs on FX, okay? And I had not seen seasons 1 through 4. Friends were like, you have to watch Snowfall, you have to watch Snowfall. I was like, okay, cool. I pay for Spectrum. I have FX. Let me go to FX on demand and let me watch Snowfall. I went to FX on demand. Snowfall is nowhere to be found. So I pay $200+ every month to have cable. And now I cannot even go to FX on demand. And so I was like, okay, well, where is it? Oh, it's on Hulu. Okay, let me go to Hulu and let me watch it. I go to Hulu. I am forced to watch ads because the tier of Hulu that I have has ads. So I am now watching content, and I am ad-supported content. And I know that that writer is not getting paid for the content that they've written, even though I am being forced to watch it with ads, and I pay for a cable subscription.
Wow.
That's when it really hit home for me.
Wow.
And I was like, oh wow, everybody's getting paid except
so the
for
profit
us.
pool has not only increased, it has in some ways accelerated, because we've all gone from a model of paying our cable bill to now paying for most of our homes, our cable bill and the 4 or 5 extra subscriptions that we want access to, right? So the profit pool has gotten bigger, and it's accelerated because of what I told you, the binge syndrome, right? Wow. And now all of this is happening, but the fringe, the support, the structure, the processes, all of the things historically which kept this system, people eating, people living, people, all the things, that's not kept up. So that part is falling.
Yeah. So it's basically, we keep all profit. We give you less and less. I mean, I don't know if you saw the story recently about Orange is New Black and those actors like explaining their residuals and what they're getting. Oh, also, mind you, a lot of these streamers are international. We don't get international residuals either. So if my show is showing in England and France, in Japan, $0. And so
you guys are kidding me.
No. And so,
well, tell them you do get like the one time, like I remember
you get the one time, but you're not getting like, I mean, but that's not, I guess you can call it's a syndication fee, but it's not necessarily a residual. So it's not, you're not getting it per time people watch it, or even
people,
quarterly. So there's these things. And so, especially as actors and writers, it's like you'll get, I'm in both, and I'm always amused when I get a check for a cent, literally 1 cent, 2 cent, 5 cent. I recently
the check itself, boring business mama here will say, was like $20-$30, and somebody went through the process of doing that part for a cent.
Right.
That's crazy.
And the envelope and the stamp, I was like, everything around this is worth more than what you're giving to me.
Exactly.
You know,
the paper, also the paper that it's printed on.
It's like vertical integration has also made it a little bit more complicated, because now everybody's just selling to themselves, right? Like if you're Disney and then you're selling it over here and charging fees to yourself for now putting it on this one, and then you're selling it, like, you know what I mean? There's all these ways in which it costs a lot of money for them to do, and I'm doing air quotes, like hell. And ultimately you're like, yeah, but isn't this all to you? Right? Like, isn't it all within? But you're counting this as cost, but then you're saying, okay, we don't get money unless you have profit, but you don't have profit because now you're selling something to yourself. Like,
So
there are ways in which
I want to actually take us a different direction, because not a different direction to shift, but more an element that I want us to talk about. The thing that is resonating for me right now is that the people that do this work, most, if not all, are doing for the love of art, doing for the love, in many cases, of humanity, doing it for the desire to be a part of a system that drives stories and pushes itself forward based on those stories, right? It's almost ironic that the system, whatever we want to describe the system, is rising up in such a way that it's deminimizing the pure nature of what this is and what this is about as an art form. And it's a shame that it doesn't recognize that as it grows, it has an obligation to host and save a safe place and as much runway for the folks that are creating it, driving it, telling the stories. Like, I can't get my head around that. Like, it feels like you're being taken advantage of in some ways.
Oh, we are.
Exactly. That's exactly what's happening.
So let's fast forward the movie, and let's say the strike ends in, them saying, well, we can just move forward with AI tools and all the things, right? And so you either come on and get on the train the way it is or not. What happens to the world and life that we live? What happens to the pure art?
I think it's a little dangerous to just say pure art, because I think we live in a world where often people devalue art, right? Until it makes them millions of dollars and they can put it on their wall and then that person's dead. You know what I mean? Like, then they want to it's art, it's high art, it's worth a lot of money. But it's worth a lot of money even when Van Gogh is alive, right? Like, you shouldn't have to wait till that artist is dead for them to make cash. This is also the way we eat. This is the way we pay our health insurance. This is the way we feed our families. This is the way we keep the lights on. It has always been show business. So it is art and business. And I think oftentimes the way they're able to diminish us and the way they're able to get around paying us is for our love, right? That we are passionate and we love it. So they're like, oh, you would do this for free. And I'm like, yeah, but I shouldn't have to, right? Exactly. You're making millions. We should make money off of this as well. But to answer the second part, it's like, do you really, I'm going to pose that back to you.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen this latest Black Mirror, but do you want AI telling you what the human experience is?
Right.
Telling you what beauty is and what beauty is not.
Right.
And tell you who is important and who is not.
Right. Art imitates life. So it's not the other way around. If you have AI telling you, then you have cut out the whole real life experience, the personal experience of what it is. So now they're dictating to you what happens. There's a reason why what we watch on television tends to resonate and mimic what's actually happening out there in the world. And those stories are important. Like, when you end up with AI telling it, in my vision, it makes the pool, again, very small. It makes it very singular, and you still miss out on points of view that are very important.
No doubt.
And it's a plagiarism machine, right? Like, what they're doing, it's not just creating things whole cloth.
Right.
They're feeding it our information. They're feeding it our material. They're feeding it our thing. And then it's rejiggering it ever so slightly and then saying it's something new.
Yeah.
And if it can only feed off of what has been done, who historically hasn't been a part of that narrative? Who historically hasn't been seen? Who is still fighting to be seen and have their voice heard? right? If AI is in control, how likely is it? How likely is it that those voices will now be heard? Very slim, right?
Right.
Girl,
So
talk
it's like
about it. Talk
women,
about it.
people of color, people who are disabled. Like
Yeah.
we already have an issue getting this work on screen. The
Yeah.
fights Yvette has, the fights I've had, the fight every writer of color I know, every LGBTQIA, every disabled writer has to just get their work on the screen, let alone tell authentic stories from their communities. So we just got an Asian superhero, right? Like we're
Yes.
already in first of a lot of things.
Yeah.
So if you let AI take control, it doesn't have 50, 60, 70 years of those stories, right? So we're not going to be there. There's a certain group of people who are just not going to have their stories told. And even then, I just feel very strange about the idea of a computer being able to tell me what beauty looks like. Because I'm pretty sure it's not going to look like me. Or, if it's ableist, if it's colorist, if it's classist, right? Or if it's just a propaganda machine. If there's no human involved, we are now being taught whatever they decide it should teach us, it should show us, and how we should feel about it. There's a lot of dystopian movies about this. We can throw a rock and find one. I want to live in that world.
Right. So what happens with schools and education and parental support and guiding this direction? I mean, I feel like we're at such a precipice. So many are watching what is happening right now because this has the ability to really change, really, really change.
And I think everyone's following us. I think we're leading the way because we are at a precipice. And how ironic is it that the people who create art for a living, who are we show the world, stories. We tell stories that we're the ones.
You make us feel good.
Yes, we make you feel good.
Right? Like, let's be honest. And you're the ones that are saying, okay, we can tell a great story and make you feel real good, but let's talk about the facts. Let's talk about what's happening. The day that this comes out, and like you said, so many things are de-glamorized, it almost goes against everything about the grain of what we've been all, sort of preconditioned to believe. I love it.
Yeah.
So, okay, now I'm going to talk about, Sasha Fierce here. So Bianca, how what does that conversation look like when you're like, we're mobilizing and I'm going to do this. I'm going to stand up. I'm going to stand out. I'm going to be bold. What tell us a little bit about what fed up looks like, enough, but more importantly than what fed up looks like, because I think all of us have been fed up in various spaces and places before, but it's something to be able to command the bravery and the courage to stand 10 toes down, right? In whatever your shiro stance is, and just go despite yourself. Like if you're like me, the times that I do that, like launching a podcast and a book and telling people about who I am before I walk in the room, if you're like me, it's when you do it that you're like, oh God, I just did that. And then I'm like, okay, it's happening now. So tell us what that's like, what that's been like for you. And then Yvette, I want to hear the same for you, right? Because you are people living this human life that we all live. You're leaders living this human life that we all live. I want folks to hear what it sounds like when we really activate for what we believe in and what we find purpose in.
I love all that you just said, but also that you use Sasha Fierce in particular as your example, because, everybody loves Beyonce, but that story, I remember hearing that story of like, your way of getting over stage fright, your way of owning this thing was to almost create this other version of yourself to empower yourself to do the thing you really want to do, but are afraid to do. Because I think both of those things are true. Like it is scary, right? Like, we're all, like Yvette said, this time last year, I was like, okay, well, we're squirreling away any cash we possibly can because I need to be able to survive this as long as I can, because I need to fight, not just for me, but for the next generation of writers, the writers I represent as the like I'm one of the co-leads of the CBW, and we have a committee of hundreds of writers, and I hear their story. New people coming in who are talking about all these things that are happening to them that are worse than what's happened to me just a few years ago. And then what I'm dealing with, and then other people, it's like, these things aren't just happening to us. And then it also, for me, my Sasha Fierce came out when I recognized that every right I have right now is because somebody else sacrificed for me. Somebody else said enough is enough. They got water hosed or they got starved out, whatever it may be. Our weekends, our health insurance, our pension, all of this is stuff that people fought for. They weren't given, they were fought for. And so if we are going to have any kind of business, whether I lose my career or not remains to be seen. I may never work again. Who knows? Some people are vindictive. But I do know it's worth the fight. And so that's what keeps me on the line, and protecting other writers, and knowing at the end of the day, if this is where it ends, is where it ends, but I'm not going to go down without a fight. My dad's a military man. My folks is military folk.
Mine too.
Listen, like you don't start nothing, won't be nothing. But if you want to bring it, you're gonna feel the smoke, and that is
You
just
sound
how
like
I
you're
am.
from New Orleans too, girl.
Like, my mom's family's from New Orleans, so it's like we will bring it. Like we will bring it. I will never start a fight, but I will never back down from one if it comes. So that's me.
Oh my gosh. Girl,
Yeah.
I love it.
Go ahead. Yeah. No, echo everything that Bianca just said. I think for me, it's also the piece of fairness, which is my soapbox, and equity. So coming into this, I didn't come into this for the money, right? I came into it because it's what I love to do, but I never second guessed that what I would be compensated would allow me the living that I want to have. So when I found myself at a place of, well, wait a minute, this isn't, as the kids say, the math ain't mathin', you know, it's like, I know what I'm supposed to make. I know what my predecessors have made. And so why is it now that the system is lopsided? Why isn't there equity? And so my fight became, we need equity, because we should not be the piece of the equation that's getting paid the very least, where there is no opportunity for us to be able to get, or it's very limited, for us to get. The average working writer should be able to afford a house in LA. Like this is at a bare minimum, we should be able to live comfortably in a city, with a high cost of living, because we are contributing to art, because we are contributing to entertainment.
You're contributing to the infrastructure of that city, right? I mean, I even think
we are.
Yeah,
billions of dollars a year. They're making billions of dollars a year, and they're writers who are on hit shows who have to take a second job. They're writers who are on shows right now, actors on shows right now. I mean, that's the thing about the Orange is the New Black story, where they're tending bar at night and then running to the set to do their thing because they don't make enough money to make rent and the pay.
That blows my mind.
That's crazy.
It's a blockbuster show. So tell me this, you guys. Who decides you're going to be the A-list overpaid 1%er, and who decides that you're not? Like, because again, in this glamorized version of everything, and you don't have to answer that, but I guess at the end of the day, I listen to this and I'm like, man, when you think of equity and inclusion and contribution and fairness and wealth and all of those things, I just don't understand how the scales can get tipped so much that those of us that are onlookers can be wooed by what we read in the magazines and see on the fingers and all the things, right? that go with it's highly glamorized, and the system itself that's contributing to all of that, you would automatically assume that the system is getting that too. Does that make sense? If it's so let me break it down to a more tactical comment. If I am looking at the system of a fantastic show where there is just a very well-known, very well sought after actor or actress, I'm thinking the system, the whole show is in the money. That's what you would see if you start up an Amazon, right? If you're in the startup room and you're employee number 1 to 100 on the way up, as the system grows, it's not just, the Bezos who's growing. It's those people who were in the room 1 through 1,000 who were well contributed in ownership. So that's the part that my business mind cannot get around here. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It does. It does make sense. And what I've seen, and Bianca, please jump in, but what I've seen over the course of the last 10 to 15 years is there has been an increasing push to find every loophole possible to exploit the people in between. If we can, we know the contract says this, but it doesn't actually say how many writers I have to have in the room to do this. So if we can do it with 5 writers versus 8 writers, then maybe I can pocket the 3 writers' salaries. Never mind that it's going to stretch out everybody that's in that room, because you need 8 writers to tell that many stories over the course of that many months, in that season. But finding ways to whittle away what we make and to make us work longer hours with less pay. It's just that money goes somewhere into their pockets. So if like all of those loopholes, finding those particular ways around, and when you start to find so many workarounds, you aren't thinking about the fact that this is a team effort. You aren't thinking about the costume designer that really needs 4 people on their staff because they're already working with a skeleton crew. When you go, you can have 2. Okay. But I blame people who have come in and who have said, I can do this with 5 people. The job that used to be done by 10. How can you do it?
That's happening, that's happening in corporate America too, in some ways, right?
Yeah.
Where
people are doing
But I think it's also hard to blame. I mean, like, as a person who's been on both sides, also as an actor, like those higher paid actors, a lot of time, they didn't have, they've had to work to get to that. And they're actually not usually paid as much as we think they are either. And I think some of it is, again, to the smoke and mirrors of it all. When they're on the red carpet, all that stuff is rented or given to them for the night, right? There is somebody at the end of the night with a little briefcase that's like, please take those rings off and put them in. They don't own that stuff. Right?
Yes,
like I know actors who are renting all kinds of gowns for special events, and you would think they got all this money. That's rented, right? We are a production industry, and we know how to make it look good. When we ain't got nothing. I think there's a way in which it seems like, and there was somebody who of one of the lovely studios who made it sound like, oh, we can't pay this because, there's actors who are making too much money. And it's like, but if they're bringing in millions of dollars, I don't have a problem with those people getting paid. But what happens is we're squeezing the lower class, the middle class. The other actors are not, right? And even in, I don't know the exact numbers, but there've been movies where like the women and the men are not making the same. The man is making $1 million for the picture, and she may be making $200,000. She the lead. She ain't making the same amount of money, right? And so again, we keep projecting out what we pretend that people are making this high amount of money when they're probably not. That doesn't mean they're going to be paid on time. It doesn't mean that goes into their pockets, because what people don't also understand is We have agents, we have managers.
Right.
These are part of the business. You cannot get jobs without them. That's 10%.
Yeah.
Agent, 10%. Manager, lawyer,
Right.
5%. Your union,
5%.
2 to 5%.
Right.
Uncle Sam.
Uncle
right?
Sam. Uncle Sam. Right. Right.
You know, you're paying 30
yeah.
to 50% sometimes, right? So it's like they might have this big payday and then it goes down. But that's those people. Let's talk about the average person. The average actor, 87% of SAG actors do not make $26,000 a year, which is what you would need to qualify for the health and pension plan.
Wow.
$26,000, right? And you think about that, right?
It's so well below the national poverty line, guys. I mean, it's so well below that I think it might even be 42,000 now, right? For family.
Right. And so for us as writers, I think it's higher. I think it's maybe, it also depends on if you're doing comedy or
drama,
like the amount you have to make is different. But the idea of like, I know so many writers who are in hit shows who don't qualify for health insurance every year. And that's not just for them. That's for their kids. That's for their sick spouses and like other people who are on it. Like, I don't think people understand that like what we're asking for isn't because we're not trying to work, and it's not because we're greedy. It's literally like the system is broken. We are literally playing baseball with rugby rules. They're kicking the shit out of us and then pretending that like we just don't know how to swing a bat well. No. We were playing baseball. We were all at least playing in the same field. Now I don't even know what we're doing anymore. And the system is broken. So people cannot afford to even do the things. I mean, and let's not even get into like how our pay structure works and like how we can be fired on a dime.
That's for our next podcast.
I mean, we're striking in part because the floor is falling out. Like, and I think people are like, oh, they're trying to make all this more money. No, we're trying to keep things from falling apart. We can look at what's happened in the publishing world and how AI has done that, and they're being sued there, right? You can look at what they're doing in the visual arts. I have friends who are graphic artists, and they've watched their careers, their whole companies dwindle in the last year with all of these new things that are making art, and I'm doing air quotes like crazy. But they're using their names, right? This is why they're plagiarism machines. They're being sued by them because they were just going through the internet, stealing their artwork and saying, hey, I want an image that looks like something Yvette would write. Or if you put ChatGPT, I want a script about this that Bianca would write. It's stealing my stuff and coming up with a facsimile of it. And then I'm not only not getting paid, but somebody else is pawning it off as if it's theirs. Like, and then somebody is making money off of this. So it's like, we're in a place where this isn't questionable. Like this is where we are.
It's not.
There is going to be no career in at least 3 years. And if AI is able to do it, it'll never be able to do it just by itself. No. Now we're gig workers who are having to go back behind a computer and put human salt on top, right? We're the human seasoning on top of the AI, meal that they made so that we make it sound right and we make it sound human and we make people sound like people. And then we get paid nothing. No, no, and no.
I don't like it.
And Chantra, A-listers represent such a very small portion of the entertainment society as a whole. Actors, writers, the writers that even whose names that you may even know, right? The Shonda Rhimeses, the Ryan Murphys, they represent such a small portion. What we're asking for, what we're fighting for is just that the 80%, makes enough money to be able to enjoy their life.
Wage.
Exactly. A living wage. That's exactly what.
But I want you to make more. I do. Because again, the businesswoman in me says, yes, I think there's an altruistic nature of being, a natural artist and creator that many times, so many people that I love do it for the love of the thing. I know that. But if the profit pool is increasing, and there is
Wall Street. Come on, Wall Street. Yes,
there's an acceleration to the profit pool, then it just feels like the whole value chain should participate. And, getting this conversation almost full circle back to the beginning, Bianca, where you so nicely kind of said, it's the UPS strike, it's the
hotel workers,
the
the
hotel
laborers,
workers,
the
it's the laborers,
janitors.
right? It's the janitors, it's all those things, right? At the very end of the day, what you have done for me, and I know that you've probably done for others, is educated us on the fact that it's no different. Absolutely no different. And although maybe there's an altruistic love in nature that pulled you into this space and you love it, you still have earned, I won't even say deserve, you have earned the right as a contributor to an expanding profit pool and an expanding value chain to enjoy it. And I think you have educated me to understand, girl, why folks are up there walking and talking up and down the streets and saying, no, I'm not writing it anymore. I'm not going to act in it right now. And I also understand why the actors have joined it, because that was really interesting for me to kind of see how it went from the writer's strike to actors joining. And by all rights, the forecasts that I'm hearing say that this could go well into the beginning of 2024.
It doesn't have to. The AMTP can come back to the table and make a deal. But if those executives who were nameless decide that they want to do what they've threatened, which is wait until we're losing our homes and our apartments and we can't eat so that we make a bad deal, then maybe, yes, we will last that long. But ultimately, I think the ball's not in our court, right? We've made offers, they've rejected it, they've refused to even talk about certain things. And so we will withhold our labor until they decide they would like to have a real conversation about I don't even want to enjoy. You know what I want? I want to eat.
That's right.
I want to pay my bills.
Right.
I want to be able to retire. I want to not to like stress. And you can't make $1 million off our work, billions of dollars off our work, and then I can't pay my rent. Sorry. Sorry, not sorry.
I want to go to the doctor if I'm sick.
Amen.
Yeah, I want y'all to do that more, because you know what? Other people are. So I'm gonna drop that mic right there. Well, you guys, seriously, this has been so fire. This was actually the first podcast that I did like as a girl group, right?
All right. We're here for it.
So
work it out.
That was really cool. And I wanna have you guys back. I wanna keep up with what's going on. Maybe touch in another month or so. I keep us posted. And if there's anything big that you think folks need to know about, I'd love to be a vessel. Because I think this is important. And in the spirit of Proven Not Perfect, really highlighting stories of women leaders, women trailblazers, I think that you're right there. You're in my village of all-stars. Yvette already was. Bianca, welcome. And, just keep doing what you do, because it's the stories that we tell for ourselves, but even more for our babies and those to come. And we pay it forward, and we're all blessed. All right, you ladies, thank you so much. I'm so proud of you both. Big hugs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I told you, did you learn something? Did you figure something out that you didn't know? Are you still rose-eyed glasses about all of the nuances of the highly glamorous industry? Look, let's be real. It is still very glamorous, and we're all here for it. But let's just say that we all walk away a little bit clearer how important it is to really get the facts, to really understand, and to be available to fight for what's right. All right, that's it. Enjoy. Proven Not Perfect.